What is up, everybody? RLTK podcast. Jordan here, kicking it with my boy Chris. Chris, what's good?
What's good, man?
Chilling, bro. I am. You know what? I'll keep it a buck. I'm a little bit annoyed today.
Yeah.
Because my car insurance went up.
Uh-oh.
But it's all good. You know, it's life. Stuff happens. Things happen that you don't want to happen. So we'll just keep it pushing.
It's true, but we got good news, though.
What's that?
The Cowboys going to win the Super Bowl next year.
Bro, I'm not even.
That is a fact.
I'm not even.
That's a fact.
I'm not even ready to say that. I'm a Cowboys fan.
I am.
We say it every year. I feel like it's just tradition. Like we're just supposed to say it. You know what I'm saying?
Tradition.
I know people find it annoying.
Let's keep it up.
Yeah, you know what? Let's keep it up. Cowboys win the Super Bowl next year. Let's go.
Tradition. We're going to say it. We're going to pin
Triple
it right
D,
here.
all day. Let's go.
Facts, man. I'm just saying.
We got cheated anyways.
You know what? I agree. 100%.
I know the 49ers feeling our pain right now.
Oh, facts.
But I'm so glad they lost.
I'm not going to lie. I thought they had it in the first half.
Bro, they was working them.
I really did.
They was working them, bro.
Facts. Now, here's the real question, though. Do you think Patrick Mahomes is the next GOAT?
I think there's like no question that that's already true.
Interesting. So you think he already passed the standard of GOAT, or you think he's already reached the standard of GOAT status?
He's like GOAT Junior.
Okay. All right.
He's like Lil GOAT.
Like
LIL.
Lil GOAT.
Yeah. LIL. Lil GOAT.
Yeah. I've been hearing this conversation about, the GOAT, who's the GOAT. And one of the things I really question is what is actually the standard of being the GOAT? Because, they have the conversation of Michael Jordan and LeBron, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes. Like, what is the standard actually to being the GOAT of a particular sport?
I mean, from my understanding, it seems like it's consistency, longevity, championships, and then like signature moments. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so obviously,
interesting.
I mean, Mahomes has what? Like 5 Super Bowls in 6 years or something stupid, or 4 and 5.
I thought he had 3.
He has 3, but he's been to like 4 and 5 years.
Okay,
1, 3.
Yeah.
Come back in all of them, I believe. Only lost in one of them. 6 AFC championship games. So I think he's been to the AFC championship game every single year he's been in. So it's pretty ridiculous. And I mean, he's 28. So
yeah,
we're all assuming he's going to get as many rings as Tom Brady or more.
Yeah.
If he does, there's just no question.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And you got to think about how many good quarterbacks there are in the league right now, too. And he's just mopping those cats up, bro. They can't do nothing.
Yeah, it's facts. Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Just is what it is.
Kind of hurts me a little bit.
So anyways, let's hop into this dialogue today. So today we wanted to jump into this idea of language. And I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah,
I'm excited to talk about it because it's hella important.
Yeah.
And I think it's essential when thinking about how to engage this next generation. And so, anyways, I have the first question. Chris, what is your favorite term you use that means multiple things? Or you can give me multiple terms if you want. I'm cool with that.
I use facts a lot. Like facts.
Big facts.
Big facts.
I was listening to a podcast from England and they would always say Bible facts, which I thought was hilarious. Bible facts. Big facts, bro. Bible facts, bro.
I think I might start using that. I might steal that. Shout out to them cats, man. I also use 100 too. I use a lot of that. I use when people say something nice or they say something good, I say, oh, that's 100. Yeah. Or I even say that when I say bye, when I'm on the phone.
100.
They be like, all right, bro. All right, 100. And I hang up the phone.
Or like, that's true. Or that's right. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. That's crazy. I'm trying to think of one that I use. I use tons. I mean, yeah, we would use sick. But that's dope. Did you say that's dope already?
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, that's dope.
I like that's dope.
That's
bro.
lit.
Yeah. Oh, lit. Bro, that was lit.
Or that's foul.
Oh, yeah. It's funny how we use disgusting words to say something that's good.
Yeah.
Bro, that's sick. That's nasty.
That's grimy, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Yeah, it's wild.
Bro, my closet makes no sense. It's like it actually doesn't make any sense.
Bro.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's strange. But I think that speaks to the conversation that we're going to have, right? Which is ultimately the way that we use words today is strange.
It is, man. And I think but
also very important to understand.
Agreed. I think one of the most difficult things about language is that it's the only thing that we can use. It's one of the only language is actually the only thing that we can use to actually understand meaning, you know, to understand what matters,
Okay.
you know.
You already starting,
Oh, you're right. Yeah, but
you're gonna have to explain yourself now.
I mean, so like, I mean, this can be easily a 4 or 5 hour conversation about meaning, but it's like meaning itself. When I say meaning, I mean usefulness. How can we understand what's useful in the world?
Okay.
And we have to make the distinction between, I think we already understand what's meaningful to a degree, like what matters when pertaining to the individual, but also language has to give a descripting or has to draw out what that actually means.
Okay.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So like when we look out to society, when we see injustice, when we see the lack of love, lack of care, like we already recognize that. Like
Yes.
people already see that.
We experience it.
Exactly. And
Yep.
but how can we actually understand it? And I think language is one of the things, I think the only thing that can actually help us understand what
Yeah.
love, meaning, and matter is. So I think language is very important. And I think we're kind of using it selfishly today in society because the whole drive of individuality and individualism is kind of making words lose its meaning.
Okay.
Actually, yeah,
Interesting.
that's what I think, though.
So the next question was, what is language? Which you kind of gave your explanation of.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's like this vehicle that we use to communicate meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the words themselves, are sure they're important, but they're important because of the meaning that we're trying to convey.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
And the interesting thing about that is now that we live in a postmodern society where, you know, we're constantly expanding the meaning of words.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we do it in jest, right? Like, yo, that's dope, that's sick, that's grimy, that's this, that's that.
Yeah.
But we do that in the context of more technical words too. Like, we just expand the meaning over time. Now, is that a like societal thing that just has always happened? I don't actually know. But I think in recent years and in recent history, it seems quite clear that that's something that we consistently do. And I think what that ends up actually doing is making it more difficult to understand each other.
In a sense of like just 2 different generations,
or just in general, like we may use the same words, but we may not be saying the same thing.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to get like an actual definition of language here. I had it pulled up earlier, but
I agree with that.
So here's dictionary.com's definition of language. A body of words and the systems for their use common to a people who are the same community or nation, the same geographical area, or the same culture or tradition. You know what's interesting about this? So I thought about this now and I'm like, well, these same boundaries that we had to define how we understand language, its common use into a specific people have been broken by this.
Explain that. That's good. Explain that.
Well, like now I can talk to anybody anywhere for any reason, right? And then we speak of the reality of like Gen Z, young people having their own like digital language, so to speak, like memes. Like memes are a language, like
it's
are they
becoming
not?
a language.
I mean, but they
it's
like
becoming a language.
But they communicate a specific thing and convey a certain type of meaning or a lack of meaning, right? Because we find that a lot of times memes just like make fun of things and make things absurd.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking about all those memes about death or, you know, like that young people. Wow. Bro.
I'm sorry. I had to say it.
That hurts me. I mean, we were sending them to each other, so it's whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like isn't memes a language technically then?
I think it becomes a language.
Well, it says a body of words, but.
Well, I think something becomes a language when it can talk about itself.
Okay, you got to explain that.
I mean, like I don't think memes can describe memes.
Okay.
Like
I
what
get you.
okay, yeah. I don't
Hmm.
think memes can do that just yet, but it is a particular way to communicate a particular idea or or a clever thought, something like that. But I don't think memes in itself can describe itself. But I think once it does that, it may actually become a language that we're gonna have to really study.
So maybe it's a dialect,
Hmm.
a variety of a language that is distinguished from other varieties of the same language by features of phonology, grammar, and vocabulary, and by its use by a group of speakers who are set off from others geographically or socially.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's a dialect because
Yeah.
it is based in the English language or like whatever language the meme is created in,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like a sub language almost. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Anyways,
I
just a thought,
mean,
random thought.
Badu, I think it's an interesting thought though, because it's very embedded in society anyway. I think that's how we usually crack jokes and or to make humor, to make light of things. Um, but I do think language is very important to discuss because we have to look at certain things that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but just by looking at society, it seems as there's two philosophies that's really running the course here. It's existentialism and uh, um, what's the other one?
Postmodernism, empiricism.
No, social constructivism.
Ah,
And so I think, and one of the things that social construct trying to shape society is language. That's one of the things you have to do to shape a society is we have to have a discussion on what words we ought to use. And so that creates a particular language on how we communicate and what matters and what is meaningful for this particular society.
Hmm.
And so I think this is a very crucial conversation to have because we see it on social media, we see it on TV, we see it in real life. Language is being changed, right?
Yeah, bro.
And so this is making society very confused. And this is one of the reasons why I think think some of the Gen Z believes that there is actually no meaning. Because how can you actually communicate that if you leave it up to them themselves and they can't even find it in society? So to a degree, we're voluntarily confusing ourselves
Yeah,
by using language.
I think the way we use it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just that. It's that idea that I was just talking about earlier of like expanding the meaning of things and making words, parsing out words that perhaps we didn't parse out before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, obviously this is somewhat controversial, but somewhat not.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of sex and gender being parsed out.
Yeah.
That's a recent phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
something that we've been doing I think we've been doing that for less than 50 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're starting to parse out certain things that we didn't parse out before and give definitions to things that we didn't give definitions to before, or giving words multiple meanings, right? Or removing the meaning from words, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't mean that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's not actually what that means. That's not actually like correct.
Yeah.
Even though historically that's been true for hundreds of years. Well,
Yeah.
no. We've actually evolved and we've decided or determined that that's not actually that. It's something else, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think in the midst of all that, I think it's kind of funny. Gen Z is kind of shaped by it, but at the same time, they see the absurdity of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everything's meaningless and they make fun of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, because of the nature of what it means to be human and the reality that we are formed and shaped and by the things that we interact with, unbeknownst to us, and like we have way less power than we think we do to resist those things.
Mm-hmm.
They're still shaped by it and they still live by it, even though they make fun of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
I do. Yep. I do.
And so, yeah, it's really interesting to think about and pay attention to, but the way we use words, the way we define words, I think is incredibly important. But I think also what we have to recognize is this generation is speaking a different language than us, completely different language. And if we're going to have relationship with them, reach them, connect with them, share the gospel with them,
Mm.
be a part of their lives, we're going to have to communicate in a different way and with a different set of assumptions than we had previously.
Ooh, a different set of assumptions. A different set of assumptions. Now, what do you think? Because but that also ties to their culture. Then that means Gen Z's culture is different. If their language is different, that means their culture is different.
Yeah, absolutely it
And
is.
so, what do you think the culture of Gen Z is?
Well, when you point to the things that like make up culture, right?
Yes.
Like when you think about art, when you think about music, when you think about
Belief.
dress, yeah, belief
Aesthetics.
too, all those
Yeah.
different. When you think of when you bring those things together that make a culture, they're very different.
It's true. Yeah, they are. Yeah. Yeah. And so we're not even talking about, to a degree, we're talking about language, but to go even a little bit further, we're really discussing what meaning means to Gen Z then.
Yes.
Right. Because
we have to go discover that.
Agreed.
And I think here's part of the problem that happens for us as people who are not young people stepping into the young person's world and engaging them. We're expecting them to understand where we're coming from without understanding where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? And so what we do is we just wholesale assume or say that what they're doing is wrong, right?
Right.
And the reason we're doing that is because they weren't raised and don't understand or see the world the same way that we do.
Yeah.
And then if we're really not careful, what we'll end up doing is tying the gospel to that. So what cultural issues we have with them, right? Or issues of language, we now make spiritual issues. You know what I'm saying? We make them Christian, you're not following God issues, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, no.
Right.
They just don't come from the same culture that we do.
Yeah.
And so we have to be smart enough, shrewd enough, wise enough, slow enough
to
take the time to process what is like their culture and what is like actually gospel issues.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a very good point because the gospel is a spiritual message at its core, but also it is it appeals more to the design and nature of man and his lack of moral understanding, and it's not just a state of how you act or how you think. It's more of design. The gospel appeals to the design of man, the actual design of man, and how it's fallen from order and grace. So I do agree with that. That's a very good distinction. That's interesting. But that also shows the lack of understanding on our part.
Yes.
A lack of understanding on our part, which you already said that, which is very good, by the way. It's just,
but I think it's our misunderstanding of like what it even means to lead, what it means to serve, what it means to help somebody understand, right? Like, and once again, this comes back to generational differences. We've talked about this a bunch.
Yeah.
The idea that, you know, young people now, their understanding of truth is more social. Ours is very much pipeline, hierarchical. You know, you listen to the doctor, listen to the lawyer, listen to the professor. They're not about that.
Yeah.
And so I think where that becomes difficult for influencers, right? Parents, pastors, teachers, coaches. Kids don't listen to you for the same reasons anymore.
Yeah.
They don't care about whether you're the smartest person in the room, whether you actually do have something to offer them educationally, have something to offer them in terms of their sports, so on and so forth. What they care about is like, yo, do you care about me and do we have a relationship? And if we do, then I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
But if we don't, I won't.
It's true.
And so I think, like, once again, like most of us would say, like, hey, even if your coach is like not a good dude or not a good woman or has some issues or goes about doing certain things the wrong way, you should still listen to him because they have information to give you that is going to help you become the best version of yourself in whatever particular discipline it is that they're training you in.
Yeah.
I think for young people, that's not the case. Like, it's a non-starter. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. Yeah.
If they can't rock with you like that, then it doesn't matter what you have to say to them. They don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so once again, I think that's a generational difference in terms of like what we value. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But as I think, man, you point out something very good, because this is where some of the social constructivism comes into play, because they also think that knowledge is obtained through the relations of society, right? And so, like, how we know things is by relations of our neighbor, right? And so, but there's a limitation there. We're going back to language, because you have to be able to communicate this meaning that you think that you have, right? Which is very interesting. That means that meaning itself, society creates. If we're trying to find knowledge, right? If Gen Z starts with relations, that we have to go to the next step. That means that also how they perceive reality is also through relations as well, right?
Yes,
so
I agree.
That's very dangerous to a degree.
How so?
Well, because how we use words, and what does, I think, the way we use words is to flesh out what we think matters and what we think is meaningful. So, but Gen Z runs to that, because why? Because relations is the first step. So
yeah. So I think,
step.
I think they think that words are less meaningful. They would ascribe less meaning to words than I think we would.
What do you say? What do you mean?
So, like, because the relational piece comes first.
Yes.
I think they would ascribe less meaning or less value to words than we would.
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep. Yep. And so I think this may be a hiccup right here. So if we're trying to communicate meaning to Gen Z, obviously we must have a relationship. But this is also, we have to understand that this also applies to those who doesn't stand where we stand, faith-based wise.
Correct.
Right. And so they're going out into the world creating relations, and this is where they're finding their knowledge, finding their information. This is where their reality is being shaped, right? Their perception is being shaped by the relations. And this is this is a very big issue. And this is why I think the differences between the relations with God and relations with society.
Okay.
So I think
there's
a big, huge difference here.
Yep.
And so I think that the scriptures itself also carries meaning, right? But it's objective meaning.
Yeah.
Right.
Truth.
It's bigger language than what we can actually grasp ourselves. Right. Truths. And so this is where we have to come into play on how to actually communicate this truth.
Yes.
To Gen Z.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
And so that in itself becomes a little bit more complicated, because I don't know, and I want to know if this is true or not. I don't know. I have a hard time really understanding this, because I'm trying to understand how we ought to use the scriptures in language. Because if we're asking how do we ought to use language, I think we use language by instructing, correcting, informing, encouraging. I have a hard time finding how can we give them objective meaning in that. You understand what I'm saying? Because the scriptures itself is very difficult to not just understand, but also to give, because it's dividing. It's dividing, because that's what truth does. That's the nature of the reality that we live in. The truth divides us.
Yeah.
It doesn't unify us, because.
So I think, like, this is where, which was one of our questions, right? Like, are there limitations to language?
Yes.
Right.
I think so.
And I think this is where we answer that question and we say, yes, there are limitations. And this is why the relationship piece is important, right? It's not like an either or, it's a both and, right? And so I think we have to have the relationship with them. One, I think because that's what they value, but two, because I think they need to see us live out what we say is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense? So like we're communicating meaning to them through words, language, which is important. But then also we need to live that out in front of them so they can hear it, understand it, and experience it. Right?
Yes.
And I think once again, like we understand that we as humans do best learning things when we actually get to imitate.
Yes.
And so
exactly,
we have to create environments for that to happen. Right?
Correct.
Which also is what Gen Z wants.
Agreed.
They want less talk, more action.
It's true, because they need, I think this may be a side note. This may have to be another podcast, but I think I've been thinking through this as well, because to ask what is the purpose of life, I think it is to find the right form of which to imitate. Because I think this is where Christ comes into play. What he was a lot, first of all, and I all that I don't know, but I know what he was. He was a form of something that we ought to imitate, because not only does Satan, what he has done cleverly is to attack identity, right? And to strip us away from the things that we think that matter, which leads us to an existential crisis, identity crisis, right? And it makes us question how we ought to be, how we ought to identify ourselves, which we have a very difficult time identifying ourselves,
Especially
if
in
I
the
am to be
postmodern
honest.
era.
Exactly. And so this is what's interesting, because how do you identify yourself as a person in this world? The only way you can really identify yourself as something is that you have to use the resources of the world.
Yes.
To put yourself in a place or in a particular idea that you like or you find pleasurable. But also, this is the difference between the world and the gospel. Christ is the resource of identity. That's why he's the proper form to which to imitate. He is all things that you need to understand how to identify yourself as. He's all that you need. And language, going back to language, we can communicate that, but only Christ can reveal that.
Yes.
I think this is where objective meaning comes into play, because the scriptures can carry the objective meaning, but only he can really show you what that actually means and looks like for your own personal self.
Yeah, he reveals truth.
He reveals truth, exactly. And so I think
that's where like God begins and we end, right?
Yes.
And I think like when you're talking about it in the context of, if we put it like ground level here, you're in relationship with a young person, you can't force them to believe anything.
You can't, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
You can communicate with them about it, right? And help them understand the meaning of it. You can imitate and show them, right? So they can experience it.
Yeah.
But ultimately the revealing of that truth it's not in your ability to reveal it to them, because you didn't reveal it to yourself.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? so yeah,
true.
like we do our part, right?
Yes.
But I think once again, back to the language piece more specifically, and in doing our part, I think the work that we need to do that we're not doing is understanding the language that Gen Z speaks and communicating to them in a way that they understand. And once, I think that takes two things. One, I think that means we have to understand the language that we speak, because once again, I think a sign that we don't understand the language we speak is to assume that everybody else should speak it. And when young people don't speak it, we get upset at them. Or when they say things that are strange to us, we assume that means they're doing something sinful and like, ungodly. So I'll give you an example. Once again, another controversial thing, but I'm going to say it anyways, because that's what we do.
Yep.
Having a conversation with a young person, they come out to me and say they're a lesbian. Okay, cool. What do you mean when you say that? Right? Yeah. So I'm not going to jump to the conclusions that means they're actually sexually attracted to girls.
Yeah.
I'm going to like investigate and discover if that's actually true.
Yeah.
And what I discover is it's actually not true. You're just saying that because you like haven't met any boys that you like yet.
Yeah.
And you're trying to like identify with a group of friends, and you're slightly confused because you have some really close relationships with girls.
Mm-hmm.
And culture says if I have deep feelings for somebody of the same sex, that must mean that I'm sexually attracted to them.
Yeah.
And so like all these things have been married together that need to be untangled, right?
Yeah.
And so imagine if I'd have just said, well, you know, well, if you're gay, you're going to hell. Imagine if I just said that.
Right.
How helpful would that actually be?
It wouldn't be
at all.
It'll drive them away, actually.
So,
Yeah.
But what I was able to do is, okay, what do you mean when you say that? Because I know what that means where I'm from.
Yeah.
But does it mean the same thing where you're from?
Mm.
Now, the answer could have been yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the answer was actually no.
Mm.
And what I discovered is like, oh, like you're just trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like when we were growing up, I know back home in England, like we had the emo kids.
Yeah.
So the kids always dressing in black and spiking their hair and all that stuff and listening to Blink 182 and whatever else.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a part of that crowd.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like that was always weird to me. But once again, that was just them going. But I mean, I had my own identity stuff going on too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, playing sports, trying to identify with that, trying to find who I was in that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're just doing the same thing about something that has been taboo for us.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so instead of us investigating to discover what's really going on, which is actually what we need to do, and oftentimes we freak out and then we end up losing them.
Mm.
And the very thing that we're afraid is going to happen ends up happening because we pushed them away.
Yeah.
Right.
That's good.
And we think about some of those communities that are, you know, confusing, like, or, you know, pulling kids in directions that we wouldn't want them to be pulled in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you the consistent story is like, yo, it was so loving and it was so accepting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have to be people that are, you know, as Christians who obviously want to proclaim the truth.
Yeah.
Like, I think people need to know us as like, yo, he may not agree with me, but that dude loves me.
Yeah. That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, he may not accept everything I do, but I know he accepts me as a person, as another human.
Yeah.
You know, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have to get better at investigating the things that young people say to us when they say them to us. And we have to like not be afraid or feel like we need to, you know, stand up for the Lord.
Yeah.
I'm going to defend.
Yeah.
God don't need you to defend him, homie.
It's true. It's accurate.
Jesus left the 99 to go get the one.
It's true.
He needs you to go get the one.
It's true. And I think that's very, I mean, if you look at Jesus' life, man, he understood people's culture. He understood their belief system.
Yep.
Which I think this, which our next podcast is going to have to be on the idea of culture, because when I hear you talk about communicating in language, there's two things I'm thinking about is, we already touched on a little bit, but culture and belief. Because when I talk to Gen Z, when we do, it's not necessarily we're going back and forth on what we think. We're going back and forth on what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's regardless if it's true or not. You know, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, Alex. You know, Alex. Shout out to Alex. And she was telling me about this kid who he uses this term all the time. Why? Is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm black? Why? Is it because I'm black? And it made me sad because, one, this kid never experienced racism a day in his life. And I'm not trying to go into the conversation of racism. Let's not go there. But I think that he never experienced it, never read a book on it, but yet he believes it's true. And so are we going to spend our time trying to debunk their ideas or trying to understand what they believe? You know, we have
Yes.
to spend a lot of time really trying to understand
Yes.
what they actually believe
Yes.
and not just their ideas. Because I
Yes.
think that's where we come from as millennials,
Yes.
is that we debate the ideas.
Hmm.
We go back and forth on ideas, you know? But what I've learned with Gen Z is that I'm going back and forth on what they believe, actually, and what they have embodied and live out and
Yes.
apply with their own life,
Yes.
you know?
Yep. And I think that's why they're easily upset and offended, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But I think, like, I'm thinking of this student at one of the high schools we do work in, and this student is showing up to Real Talk stuff, which is dope.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're obviously transgender,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, like, they're wearing all this Jesus stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think about, well, like, somebody has communicated to you, like, those things are not opposed to each other
Mm-hmm.
or conflicting ideas, or like, just, yeah, that those things are acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it wouldn't be helpful for me to just come in and be like, hey, take that off.
Yeah.
You can't wear that and look like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what does it look like to build a relationship with that person once again? Because I know that's what young people want. That's what they value. And then two, as we start to have dialogues and conversations, well, what do you think about this? And well, here's what I think about this. And here's what I think God says about this, and blah, 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 so on and so forth. Right.
Yeah.
As you start to have those dialogues, have those conversations, and get to the meaning that they understand and want to convey through language, and then the meaning that you understand and can convey through language.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what can happen? What can God do? What can God reveal?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think there's the meaning that I'm trying to convey through the words that I speak. And then there's, like, the X factor, which is God, the Holy Spirit, revealing truth to people whenever he does that.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he can use my words to do that.
Yeah, he can. Yeah.
And my hope is that he doesn't use my words in spite of me.
Mm. Mm.
Because I think that's possible too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I've had friends who say things to me that are, like, true. And, like, I take those things on, but it's like, bro, I can't stand you right now.
Yeah.
I don't even want to be around you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we have both? Why can't we love and win the person and also see God, the Holy Spirit, reveal truth to them through the things that we communicate?
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's that's fair, man. It's labor, really. It's really labor. And it's not just 10 conversations, you know. It's not just 20 conversations. It's living life with them, you know.
I would say it's one conversation that lasts years, potentially.
That's a good way of putting it. Mm-hmm. It really is. And I don't want to make language a complicated thing, you know. I really want to understand it. But it's very hard to know how to use it, you know. It's very difficult to know how to use this tool, which is just
That's a great question, bro.
You know,
how should we use language?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, my Christian answer would be to the glory of God.
I mean, yeah, but
how you flesh that out, I don't know.
Yeah,
but that's my Sunday school answer for right now. I need more time to think about what you just asked.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Because one thing perhaps too is like talking less.
Yeah,
like I think about that proverb, right? Like, in many words, sin is surely to be found.
Amen.
Why do we assume that?
It's true.
In my many words of, this might be controversial, in my many words of communicating the faith, that couldn't be true.
Yeah.
Is it just because I'm saying things that are Christian that means that there's this wholesale approval?
Oh no, you're hitting the nail on the head.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because once again, like, take that off. You can't wear that.
It's scary. Truly.
Is that godly?
Mm.
Is that sinful?
Right. Right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get what I'm saying?
I do.
So
That's why it's scary to preach the word.
facts.
You know, it's plenty of times, you
Yes.
get done talking, like, Lord, I really hope I said the right thing.
Yes.
I really hope it was accurate, the best as possible. It's the best it can be, because this is torn with,
Yeah.
this is not your place. You know what I'm saying?
I
But
do.
it's a privilege.
And so I think that's why we have to take it seriously. I think that's another thing too. Like, we don't take the words that we say seriously.
Agreed.
I mean, Jesus said every idle word.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I don't take that passage as seriously as I should.
Yeah. Yeah. I do be going off sometimes.
Yeah.
For real.
And it's like, okay, what if we just took that in the context of me, like, trying to explain the faith to somebody. And the times maybe I got frustrated with a person and said something I shouldn't have said, or said it in a way that I shouldn't have said it.
Yeah.
Many words, right?
Many
Sin
words.
is surely to be found.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe it applies to that type of context too.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, maybe James was right? Slow to speak, slow to anger, huh?
Yeah, quick to listen, which is hard to do.
It is.
And that is why the more I talk about it, the more I become an advocate of conversation and asking people questions and listening and being thoughtful in your responses based on what it is they're telling you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because then I know exactly what I need to communicate to them in order for them to hear and hopefully understand, respond to the gospel.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you can easily fall into a debate with a Gen Z very quickly.
Oh, facts.
And I do think there's a difference between ideas and belief. But I think when it comes to Gen Z, I think to a degree they are bound together.
Okay.
Like, in a sense, like, yes, it's an idea, but it's more of a belief than anything else. So we're not, because I think older generations could, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think older generations can actually make the distinction between just an idea and what I actually believe. And I think Gen Z,
Yes.
To a degree combines those two things together. And I don't know if that's right. This is just,
well, I think that's
me
where
guessing.
I think that's where empiricism comes in and all those different types of things. Like, I think, and how they take on things in ways that we don't.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, I think for them, it very much feels like an attack on them. Right?
Yeah.
And then you couple that with individualism. It's like, like, case in point, when the race conversations were happening, like, I remember there was this one guy who said something that I thought was really interesting. He said, when white people talk about racism, they're talking about the individual. When black people talk about racism, they're talking about power. Right?
Yeah.
And obviously, I don't want to debate all that stuff, but I think it's interesting the distinction that was made, right? And so I think that's why in the past, when I had conversations with people about certain things and they would, like, hear it and be like, well, I don't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I didn't say that you did.
Right. Yeah.
Why did you assume that I was talking about you?
Yeah.
And I think, once again, we live in a hyper individualistic society now. And so I think when you communicate certain things or you challenge ideas, if there's a person in the room that perhaps ascribes to that idea or is thinking about ascribing to that idea, they assume that you're talking about them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
And just
they get into defense mode. Yeah, you're right.
I don't think I won't say I don't think we didn't do that, because I think we do.
Okay, yeah.
I just don't think we do it as wholesale as they do.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay. All right, bro. Well, that was a fun conversation.
It was. I think we need to dive into culture, because I think this conversation is leading to culture.
Agreed.
It's leading to belief.
Agreed.
And so, in order to learn how to use the tool of language, we have to really understand belief and culture.
Okay.
I think that's where the next conversation is going to
Well, I
head
think we
to.
got our next 2 podcasts.
Yep, facts.
All right, guys. Well, that is the beginning of the conversation, not the end.
Yes, sir. Like, subscribe, and comment, man.
Yep. Like, subscribe,
sir.
comment, share with other influencers, pastors, parents, teachers, coaches, youth workers, youth leaders. Like, yo,
Yes, sir.
we want to continue to dialogue and have conversation with you. So questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comments. We'll get back to you. We love you guys. We will talk to you soon. Peace.